Hi, you guys. Today I'm just going to welcome you to my office so you can sit down and talk to me about any questions that you have about your papers and also show you the final portfolio guidelines. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make another Google Doc. Please help me. I don't know why my link didn't work for the one class last time. And I thought what I would do is I would have us just for next week just meet in small groups and just answer any questions that you have. I probably should have done this earlier in the semester, but I felt like we were busy, had a lot going on. I know you have a lot going on now, but however, in our class, after you hand in paper number 4, it's just going to be pretty informal assignments and just kind of thought pieces, kind of questions. And so the pressure's off. And so that's why I feel like it would be okay to take up a little bit of your time and I thought it might be a little bit more social than forcing you and dragging you into my office hours. So anyway, so here's my office, which I really miss. And you can see from the trees in the back, this was in the summer, but I've been back, I think 3 times, and it's really creepy when I go there. So the first time that I went, like everything was still there since March, and that was really freaking me out. And then, they say, oh, you only have an hour, but there's no one in the building. So this last time that I went, I was a rebel. I'm like, I'm going to stay an hour and 5 minutes. And I got cleaned up. But this was kind of the bizarre thing is this couple of things that were at my office, or actually 3 things. This was a mixtape that a former student alumnus made when he came to give a little concert a couple years ago, and it's been kind of like literally floating around my room for 2 years, and I just happened to notice when I kicked it when I walked in my office that it said swimming alone around the room, and that really felt like it headlined the experience of me being like completely by myself in the Castle building. And then the other weird thing, so then I went through my mailbox because I was going to really be a rebel and stay an hour and 5 minutes. And in my mailbox, there was a card. It was a suffrage postcard. And it was from my friend, Marilee Professor Benor. And it was just a friendly postcard, like, thanks for being a friend. So if you recall, when I was in that office that week, it was election week. So not only was it election week, we didn't know who had won the president, we were also studying suffrage. So having a little bit of that synchronicity when I went to my office kind of gave me a little bit of hope that things might turn around. And then the last thing just kind of was a source of reflection is this is a picture that my son drew for me the week before the shutdown, and he said, Mom, put it up in your office. And I kind of felt like I was too busy to put it in my office, so I didn't take it home. I put it up in my office, so one day I'll be able to go back and take a look at that picture. So anyway, so I'm welcoming you into my office for next week through Google. And then all I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to walk you through a little bit the final portfolio guidelines and show you where I'm putting it. So it's an assignment technically, just so it shows up on your alerts, but I don't want you to post the final portfolio in Canvas. And that is because, first of all, Canvas is really slow to load, and I grade things on my iPad, the papers. And I don't really respond to your final portfolios. I don't write on them. I just kind of do a quick and dirty read. And then I also give you as much time as I can for you to finish the portfolio. So I like to give you like a weekend after finals week. But that means I really have not very much time at all to read them and get grades done. So basically, I give you the advantage of time, and then I'm disadvantaged at time when I have to read them. So that's why it's a lot quicker to get them through email. And then I can like cruise through them and like read them on my phone. Back in the day when I could go to a coffee shop, I could be in a coffee shop or whatever, it's really like way more portable than that clunky, as Canvas app. So that is why in the final portfolio guidelines, I have it as an assignment just for the alert, but the guidelines are here. And there's really 2 things to read. So there's the final portfolio guidelines, pretty simple. I have a checklist. And how it works is that basically you're going to revise 2 papers. Get this out of the way. 2 papers. And I'm just begging you to consider revising 2 papers that you really liked, or papers that you, for the most part, felt like you had a handle on. Maybe for some of you, that's no papers, but maybe at least one paper and another paper that you think, yeah, I know how to rescue this. But don't try and take a paper that you thought was bad and maybe I thought needed work and try and rescue that. Don't try and take a paper from like 0 to 60. Take a paper from like 40 to 60. Okay, if you've got, and then also, I had said originally when I showed you my grading scale is an 8.5 paper, like a lot. That's like sometimes a lot to work with. There's probably, when you sit down with it, you're going to see a lot of things that you can do to improve it, just minor things. Sometimes a 9 is a little bit harder to work with because it's like, well, I checked all the boxes, the teacher liked it. So even though you have a 9, it's a draft and it will need work. So I just want you to kind of think in mind of like, take what I have to say about the paper off the table for a little bit. What do you think when you go back to the paper? Then take a look at my feedback and kind of own it. All right. So once you've done that and you do the revisions, and I have to say for me, when I get feedback from people, since I'm really right-brained, I just really kind of take the main idea and the thrust of it, like the 4 or 5 things that I got advice on, and then I kind of process it, and then I reinterpret it, and then I go back to my paper. So I'm kind of a synthesis kind of feedback person. So that's why you might think about like, okay, how am I processing this feedback? What are the few things that I'm seeing? What are the few things that the professor saw? And like, how can I reconcile these things and still keep the integrity of my paper and the integrity of my own ideas? All right. So the other piece of the final portfolio that might be something that you haven't done before is including a letter. So, when I badgered you for those comments, those hand-in comments, those hand-in reflection comments, the process comments, those are practice for this final letter. And the letter is when you describe your revisions and your choices as a writer. And these are really important to me because, first of all, it helps me appreciate your paper and the work that you put into it as specific as you can. I mean, I can't get enough of, on page 3, I indented or whatever. As specific as you can, because then when I look at the paper, I'm looking at a lot of papers in a short period of time. If you give me a roadmap for the things that you did to improve your paper, that really can help me appreciate it and go, wow. But if I just have to go out the paper cold, in fact, I won't even let you do that. I'll like badger you for that letter. It's really hard for me to kind of see because I don't really have the original. And even if I had it, it would be a lot of work going back and forth. So the more you put into this letter, the better I can be a reader and an appreciative reader. So I have an example here about the letter. And another thing about the letter that I think is valuable is if you can describe your writing process and you can really get at the nitty-gritties of the things that you did, then I think that you can export those skills and that what I call rhetorical awareness to other projects, right? So first of all, you're becoming more aware about you as a writer, your strengths and weaknesses, and then also kind of developing a vocabulary to just talk about what are you doing. So writing doesn't just feel like, oh, this is like big blob. I just plop it on a paper and I just hand it to my teacher and just hope for the best that I got a good grade. You've got strategies, you've got vocabulary, and you're owning it. You're owning your writing and you're owning your process. So that's how the letter works. So probably what I'm going to ask you to do is when the time comes, and I'm giving you, I think, to the 21st. So that's like the Monday after during finals week, is email me the letter, and then you can either just like attach the 2 papers together, but maybe I'll be looking for in an email like 3 things. And again, I'll try and say, hey, I got it, but I get busy. So no news is good news with your final portfolio. And the way I also work the final portfolio is the final portfolio is really what I grade in terms of, how you did in the class. If you did every discussion and handed in every paper, like you're walking into this final portfolio in great shape. If you miss some papers, that is going to affect your grade, not only because you had that missing work, is because you don't really have as many resources to work with to put your portfolio together. As for other discussions and late discussions, I usually don't really nickel and dime people, but if you did miss a paper, that is going to hurt your grades. So in the next week, if you missed a paper, you do have a chance to hand it in to me. I will take it. All right, but I won't take a missing paper in the final portfolio. Again, because I don't go at things cold, and I don't even know if it's your work, frankly. So that's a loss. So you have time to catch up if you need to. So to summarize this whole thing is you are going to revise 2 papers and describe how you revise those. So the work that you've done in this class in some ways counts twice. The process and the practicing counts toward your final grade in a pass-fail situation. And then the final portfolio also, I grade that on the quality and also the improvement. Okay? So I guess if somebody really wanted to rig the system, they could have just put like minimal effort into each paper and then work their butt off during the final portfolio and like, I'm going to shine. And that doesn't always really work out for people unless you're John Price, if you remember him. Okay? But having said that, I think that if you put some time into sitting down with that final portfolio and treat it like a final, you know, like I'm going to spend an afternoon on this, whether or not you think you just want to pound it out in one afternoon or a little by little in between finals weeks, you know, do yourself a favor and put time into that. Time to reflect, time to think. I think we've been doing a lot of work under stressful conditions and under the gun. So I'm just hoping that once classes end, maybe things become a little less hectic in your life, you have that time to set aside to put together this portfolio. So I appreciate if you take a look at the final portfolio guidelines. Before we meet next week, I'm going to follow up in this video, hopefully with a link with the sign up for the Google Docs. All right, have a good week and see you soon.